Here is your latest African news. Libya. Fresh clashes rock Libyan capital after failed coup. Clashes between armed groups have erupted in Libya's capital, according to local media, as the country reels from a failed coup attempt 3 weeks ago. Heavy exchanges of gunfire and explosions ricocheted across several districts of Tripoli over the weekend, with civilians fleeing heavily trafficked areas. The intense fighting involved two influential militias from western Libya, local media has reported. No casualties or motive for the fighting were immediately apparent, but it is the latest violence to rock the country as two rival prime ministers vie for power. After a 2011 revolt choked longtime dictator Muammar Gaddafi, political infighting to fill the power vacuum has plagued oil-rich Libya. Last month, politician Fathi Bashagha attempted to seize power by force, sparking pre-dawn clashes between armed groups supporting him and those backing interim Prime Minister Abdulhamid Dbeibah. Dbeibah was appointed under a troubled UN-led peace process early last year to lead a transition to elections set for December 2021, but the vote was indefinitely postponed. In February, Parliament appointed Bashagha a one-time interim minister to take over, arguing that Dbeibah's mandate had ended. But Dbeibah has insisted he will only relinquish power to an elected administration.
Kenya topped the medals table at the African Athletics Championships. Kenya produced a spectacular show to top medal standings as curtains came down in the 5-day Africa Senior Athletics Championships in Kordio, Mauritius. On the closing day, Kenya picked up 4 gold medals from Samuel Gadhimba, Emelingi, Abel Kipsang, Julia Siego and Jarinta Mosia to ensure the country defended their 2018 title. The continental feat ensured Kenya topped the medal tally for 2 consecutive championships with 23 medals going into the final day of action. Kenya has now collected 10 gold, 5 silver and 8 bronze medals. South Africa finished second. World Indoor 1,500 meter bronze medalist Abel Kipsang and Jarinta Mawia handed Kenya the men's 1,500 meter and women's 800 meter title on the final day. At the same highlight reel, national 100 meter and 200 meter champion Maximila Imali grabbed silver when she finished second in the women's 200 meter final. The fastest woman in Kenya, Imali gave chase, but it wasn't good enough as she settled second in 23.43 seconds, losing the battle to Semi Aminato from Niger, who clocked 23.04 seconds. Rodan Jovu settled for bronze in 23.54 seconds. Wiseman, on the other hand, clinched bronze for Kenya with the 400 meter hurdles, while Daniel Simuyu won silver in the 5,000 meter.
DRC and South Sudan. Pope apologizes for having to cancel Africa trip. Pope Francis has apologized to the people of Democratic Republic of Congo and South Sudan for having to cancel his visit because of working problems and said he was hopeful his condition would improve. The Vatican announced that the July 2nd to 7th trip had been postponed indefinitely because of the 85-year-old pontiff's knee ailment, which has forced him to use a wheelchair for more than a month. The Vatican said that the trip was postponed in order to not jeopardize the results of the therapy that he is undergoing for his knee. Francis also suffers from sciatica, which caused him to limp even before the flare-up of the knee problem. Vatican sources have said the Pope has been receiving several injections a week for the ailment, as well as physical therapy, and that he had hoped to be able to regain at least a partial ability to walk before the trip was due to start. They have said the Pope is against a surgery because of the problems with general anesthesia following an operation to remove part of his intestine a year ago.
Malawi to probe racist Chinese video exploitation of children. Malawi is probing a racist Chinese video involving child exploitation. In the 49-minute forensic investigation, a documentary showed how Chinese content creators sold videos of children in Malawi who were made to chant racial slurs against blacks in Chinese. In one of the videos shot in February 2020, a group of African children were instructed by a voice off camera to chant phrases in Chinese. The kids repeat the words with smiles and enthusiasm, but they don't understand what they're being told to say is, and I quote, "I am a black monster and my IQ is low." End quote. Reporter Runako Selina and Malawian investigative journalist Henry Mhango tracked the digital and on-the-ground footprints of a Chinese filmmaker they suspect of making the low IQ video. They were assisted by a Chinese journalist who filmed undercover, recording the man expressing a series of racist opinions about Malawians and about black people in general. After analyzing and cross-referencing hundreds of similar videos against satellite imagery from Google Earth, the investigative team located where the low IQ clip was shot, a village on the outskirts of Lilongwe, the capital of Malawi. Some of the videos identified in the investigation were sold on Chinese social media through Weibo and Hushan, among other Chinese video sharing apps. These videos range in price between $10 and $70. New video evidence reveals that the words the children say aren't racist alone, but are often good wishes or adverts of Chinese companies. There are no official figures on the exact number of vendors or how much money the sector makes from the sale of these videos. The reporters also met some of the families involved in the filmmakers' activities and examined how cultural misunderstanding and racist exploitation underpin the video making industry. The investigation disrupted the video making syndicate, but in villages across the continent, African children are still being exploited for profit.
East Africa. Rwanda says DRC launched 2 rockets into its soil. Rwanda's Minister of Defense has said DRC fired 2 rockets into the western part of its country, causing no casualties but terrifying the population at the border. In its statement, the ministry says it is the 3rd such attack since March. Tensions between the 2 countries have been on the rise as Kinshasa accuses its neighbor of backing M23 rebels, sending this week 500 soldiers in eastern DRC, something Rwanda denies. DRC's National Army has been fighting against M23 insurgents, considered a terrorist group in eastern Congo for a decade, and violent clashes have been occurring since May. Rwanda and the DRC have had tense relations since the genocide in Rwanda in 1994. Kinshasa regularly accuses Rwanda of sending troops into Congo to support M23 rebels. The Congolese army claimed at the end of May to have arrested 2 Rwandan soldiers in the DRC. But Kigali instead claimed they had been abducted on the Rwandan side of the border by Hutu rebels based in Congo. Kigali has been requesting a regional investigation since the end of May.
Rwanda. Kabuga fit to stand Rwanda genocide trial, UN court. Felician Kabuga, an alleged financier of the 1994 genocide in Rwanda, is fit to stand trial. A UN tribunal has ruled, saying it must begin as soon as possible in The Hague. Kabuga was arrested on May 16, 2020 in a Paris suburb after 25 years on the run. He is accused of helping create the Interahamwe Hutu militia, the main armed group of the 1994 genocide that claimed more than 800,000 lives. According to the United Nations, Kabuga, 87, is currently in detention in The Hague, awaiting trial before the Mechanism for the International Criminal Tribunal, MICT, which is completing the work of the disbanded International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda. The opinion of independent forensic experts differed on Kabuga's fitness to stand trial, but they agreed his condition would render him unfit in the future, the tribunal said. The judges conceded that the issue of Kabuga's fitness to stand trial had not been easy to determine and recommended that his condition be monitored continuously. Kabuga, a former president of the radio television Libre de Mille Collines, which broadcast calls for the killing of Tutsis, is accused by the MICT of genocide incitement to commit genocide and crimes against humanity.
Mali. French troops withdraw from northeastern Menaka military base. French troops have left a military base in northeastern Mali ahead of a final withdrawal from the Sahel nation. Former colonialist France set up the Menaka outpost in 2018 in the wild tri-border zone where Mali meets Niger and Burkina Faso. It housed French and European special forces under the name Takuba, tasked with training up locals. France launched anti-jihadist operations in the Sahel in 2013, helping Mali snuff out a revolt in the north. In August 2020, protests against elected President Keita culminated in a coup by disgruntled colonels, followed by a second military takeover in May 2021. From then on, relations with France have gone steadily downhill, propelled by the military resistance to setting an early date to restore civilian rule and Bamako's charges that France was inciting the region to take a hard line against it. The bust-up accelerated last year as the military wove closer ties with Moscow, bringing in military instructors that France and its allies condemned. Earlier in the year, Mali had accused the French army of spying and subversion when it used a drone to film what France alleged was mercenaries burying bodies near a military base. The videos were later proven fake, and Mali accused France of sabotage, with relations between the two countries going downhill from there. The French operation across the Sahel counted at its peak in 2020 some 5,500 troops before Paris started to reduce the numbers gradually and close the most forward bases at Kidal, Tessalit and Timbuktu in northern Mali. Last January, France's ambassador to Bamako was expelled, and the following month, President Emmanuel Macron announced the total withdrawal from Mali as relations and security deteriorated.
Ethiopia PM says committee looking into possibility of peace talks with Tigray rebels. Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has spoken for the first time publicly about the possibilities of peace negotiations with Tigray rebels who've been locked in a 19-month war with federal forces, dispelling speculation that secret talks were already underway with the Tigray's People Liberation Front. Abiy said his government had instituted a committee to examine the possibility of holding negotiations. The committee will be headed by Deputy Prime Minister Demek Mekonnen, who also serves as Foreign Minister, and will draft a report detailing the preconditions for negotiations. The comments follow the government's declaration of an indefinite humanitarian truce in March, paving the way for humanitarian aid to reach the northmost region of Tigray for the first time since mid-December. The TPLF has reportedly said that Western Tigray, which has been occupied by Amhara forces since the war erupted in November 2020, is a non-negotiable part of Tigray. The TPLF has already asked the UN Security Council to ensure the withdrawal of Amhara forces and Eritrean troops from the region. The conflict began in November 2020 when the government sent federal troops into Tigray to topple the TPLF, the region's former ruling party, saying it was in response to rebel attacks on army camps. After the TPLF mounted a shock comeback in June, retaking Tigray and then expanding into the neighboring regions of Afar and Amhara, fighting intensified in the second half of 2021 before reaching a stalemate.
Ghana suspends policemen over student protest crackdown. Ghanaian Police Service has suspended 3 of its officers, including a regional commander, after clashes with students who were protesting outside their school. At least 30 students of the Islamic Senior High School in the Ashanti region of Ghana were rushed to the hospital on June 13th after police allegedly opened tear gas on them while they were demonstrating over frequent road accidents in front of the school. According to local media reports, the students had blocked the road in front of their school in the course of their protest over frequent knockdowns. In their protest, the students lamented that frequent calls for speed ramps have fallen on deaf ears. Police were therefore called in to clear the roadblock and disperse the demonstrating crowd. Some of the students were said to have gone unconscious, and others were left with severe pain. It is, however, not clear if that is a result of the alleged firing of tear gas. A report by Ghanaian local media indicates that the police have denied firing live bullets. According to the police, they only fired warning shots to disperse the crowd. Worried parents stormed the school to demand the release of their awards as news of the incident went viral. The Ashanti Regional Education Director, Mary Owusu Afriye, told journalists that some of the victims have been resituated.
Rwanda asylum flight cancelled after legal action. The first flight scheduled to take asylum seekers from the UK to Rwanda on 14th June was cancelled after a last-minute legal battle. Up to 7 people had been expected to be taken to the East African country, but the flight was stopped after an intervention from the European Court of Human Rights. Home Secretary Priti Patel said she was disappointed but would not be deterred, and the preparations for the next flight will begin. The cancellation of the flight followed a UK court saying it will go ahead, and came after a series of legal challenges in Britain failed. The decision contradicted a ruling by judges in London who had found no immediate risk to those being sent to Rwanda.
Togo declares a state of emergency over safety concerns. Togo has announced a state of emergency in its northernmost Savane region on the border with Burkina Faso due to security issues. The move comes following increase in incessant terrorist attacks in Savane and aims to accelerate military operations in the region more effectively, according to the Council of Ministers. 8 soldiers were killed in a terrorist attack on Togo's border with Burkina Faso in May. It is known that Al-Qaeda-linked terrorist groups operating in Burkina Faso, Niger and Mali have been trying to advance to the Gulf of Guinea for a while. Terrorist groups seek to gain sea access by advancing to Ivory Coast, Benin and Togo, which border the Gulf of Guinea.
Tanzania. Tanzania wants to introduce tax on digital revenues. Digital giants operating in Tanzania may have to start paying 2% tax by July this year. Tanzania's Finance and Planning Minister Mwigulu Nchemba made the proposed tax official on 14th June during the annual budget presentation to Parliament. The proposal is, however, waiting for Parliament approval before implementation. The announcement follows discussions in April between the Tanzania Revenue Authority and the US giant Meta, the parent company of Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp. Many countries have introduced such taxes, believing that digital giants making profits in their countries should also pay taxes there. At the beginning of October, 136 countries agreed on a framework tax agreement under the auspices of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. The agreement provides for taxation in each country of operation of a minimum portion of the income earned by US digital giants, as well as a minimum global tax rate to avoid tax optimization.
South Africa. Police launched manhunt for white man who physically assaulted and threatened a black teen over salt at Limpopo Mall. Limpopo police have launched a manhunt for a man who assaulted a 16-year-old boy at a shopping mall in Groblersdal. A video circulating in social media shows the perpetrator repeatedly kicking and pointing a firearm at a teenager after being thrown to the ground as his friends plead for mercy. The video of the incident on the evening of 15th June has since gone viral on social media. Police say the assault was sparked by an incident at a local fish and chips outlet. The boy had asked the man to pass him the salt after buying food, which erupted into an argument over who should use the seasoning first. Spokesperson Motlafela Mojapelo says cases of assault with intent to cause grievous body harm and the unlawful pointing of a firearm are being investigated. The teen in the video has since been identified as Kopano by his mother, who also stated that his family couldn't sleep after the attack. According to Julia, Kopano's mother, the attacker pushed one of the boys that her son was with and also pointed a gun at Kopano's brother. Kopano is said to have tried to stop the altercation at this point, which is what led to the assault captured on video. Kopano's mother said her son, who has asthma, is currently hospitalized and complaining of chest pains. The family is still waiting for Kopano to be examined by medical professionals after the attack. Meanwhile, South Africans in social media were angered and outraged by the video, others stating that South Africa is slowly heading back to its dark apartheid days.
Democratic Republic of Congo. Rebels reportedly seized the border city of Bunagana in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. The town of Bunagana, Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, has been reportedly seized by the M23 rebels according to local activists cited in various reports. The rebel group overran Congo's armed forces. Bunagana is a hub of cross-border trade in the eastern part of the Democratic Republic of Congo, as well as one of the main crossings into neighboring Uganda. The news comes one day after the office of North Kivu's military governor announced the Congolese troops had successfully routed the M23 fighters. In a flash update on the humanitarian situation in Rutshuru territory Sunday, the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs cited clashes in different cities on the outskirts of Bunagana. The UN estimates that over 25,000 people have been forced out of their homes. Over the weekend, Congolese authorities renewed accusations that Rwanda was backing the latest offensive by the rebels. Rwanda has firmly denied providing any support. Bunagana was the main base for the M23 rebels during the 2012 insurrection. Then in 2013, the group agreed to demobilize.
East Africa. Kenya calls for a regional force to deploy against DR Congo rebels. Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta has called for the deployment of a regional force to the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo to restore peace. Regional military chiefs from the 7 EAC countries were to meet on June 12th to finalize preparations for the deployment of the regional force. The March 23rd Movement M23, a Tutsi-dominated rebellion defeated in 2013 by the Congolese army and UN peacekeepers, took up arms again at the end of 2021, blaming Congolese authorities for failing to comply with an agreement for the demobilization and reintegration of its fighters. On 13th June, the Congolese town of Bunagana, a trade center on the Ugandan border, fell into the arms of these rebels. The president added that the regional force will work with local provincial authorities to support an orderly and permanent disarmament process under the PDDRCS in order to create enabling conditions towards stability and peace in the Eastern DRC. The Congolese army accused Rwanda of invading its territory, with relations between the two countries having been strained since the massive arrival nearly 30 years ago in Eastern DRC of Rwandan Hutus accused of massacring Tutsis during the 1994 Rwandan genocide. They had warmed up with the January 2019 ascension to power in the DRC of Felix Tshisekedi, but the resurgence of the M23 and increased fighting in recent weeks have reignited tensions. Morocco. Spain and Morocco resume maritime links on the Strait of Gibraltar. Thousands of Moroccan nationals living and working in Europe have started crossing the Strait of Gibraltar in what is described as one of the largest seasonal flows of people between continents. The short 14-kilometer crossing had originally been shut in March 2020 when Morocco severed transport links with Europe over the COVID-19 pandemic. Connections between Morocco and Spain remained shut until last April due to a diplomatic dispute between the two nations. In 2019, during the last Operation Crossing the Strait, which runs from June 15th to September 15th, some 3.3 million people and over 760,000 vehicles made the crossing. The resumption of maritime traffic comes after Spain in March supported Morocco's autonomy plan for Western Sahara, a disputed territory mostly controlled by Rabat, but claimed by the Polisario Front, ending a year-long diplomatic crisis. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, follow, share, and like our video. It's the best way of supporting us. And remember, Africa is watching.